I know it won't be easy for me, but consider how difficult things are for them. I mean, hospice is an alternative to the medical establishment, and everyone loved Jonathan Taylor Thomas as Simba in The Lion King and Randy on Home Improvement. However, in 1998, he left Hollywood and never returned, explaining why he was silently suffering from terrible headaches while filming, panic attacks from fame, and personal issues that nearly broke him. He played Randy, the precocious middle son on the hit sitcom Home Improvement, and is currently starring in the new movie Wild America. Now, 25 years later, we finally understand why America's favorite teen star decided to vanish. Jonathan Taylor Thomas was born Jonathan Taylor Weiss on September 8, 1981 in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. His parents Claudine Gonalves and Stephen Weiss had no idea their son would one day be one of the biggest teen stars of the 1990s. When he started acting, he decided to change his name. He kept his first and middle names but added Thomas from his brother's middle name. It wasn't just a stage name, it was a mix of personal and professional identity, something that kept him connected to his family while helping him stand out in Hollywood. His early years were filled with change. When he was 4, his family moved from Pennsylvania to Sacramento. A few years later they moved again, this time to Los Angeles. Each move brought him closer to the entertainment industry. Living in different places at a young age may have made him adaptable, a quality that helped him later in life. At 4 years old he made a decision most kids wouldn't even think about. He became a vegetarian. He wasn't following a trend or copying someone else. He did it because he believed in animal rights. That belief only grew stronger over time. He refused to use products tested on animals and stayed committed to ethical choices despite the pressures of Hollywood. His awareness of social issues may have come from his mother. She worked with underprivileged adults and often took him to work functions. He saw things most kids his age didn't. He learned about responsibility, gratitude, and making choices that mattered. His vegetarian lifestyle wasn't just about food, it was about living in a way that matched his values. His stance on animal rights set him apart. In the 90s, young stars rarely spoke about things like ethical consumerism, but Thomas didn't just talk about it, he lived it. Fans admired him not just for his acting but for his choices. He wasn't just a teen idol, he was someone with convictions. In 1991 his life changed again. His parents divorced at 10 years old. He moved with his mother and older brother to Los Angeles. It was a tough transition, but it put him closer to new opportunities. Despite the difficulties of divorce, being in Hollywood helped him maintain the momentum of his already successful profession. Thomas had a solid network of supporters. Uncle Jeff Weiss played a significant role in his life, but his mother oversaw his work and ensured he remained grounded. Having a family member in the business gave Thomas something that many young actors lacked: someone who knew the business and could help him navigate it. Jeff was a well-known playwright and actor who was more than just a relative. He was a mentor who helped Thomas see acting as more than just reciting lines. He taught him about storytelling and the craft behind the performances people saw on screen. Thomas may have approached his roles with greater depth than most children his age because of his uncle's influence. Even in comedies, there was a genuineness to his performances. He wasn't only playing a part, he was adding something extra. Jonathan Taylor Thomas started young. By 7 he was already modeling for print ads in Sacramento, California that led to TV commercials where his confidence and natural charm stood out. He wasn't just another kid selling cereal, he had something special and people noticed. One of his first big commercials was for Kellogg's Product 19 in 1988. 2 years later he landed a Burger King ad with Thora Birch. He also did spots for Vivident gum and Canon camcorders. Each commercial gave him more experience, more time in front of the camera, and more chances to learn how the industry worked. By 8 he had already built a solid foundation. Then came his first real TV role. In 1990 he played Kevin in The Brady's, a spin-off of The Brady Bunch. It seemed like a promising project. You know, a lot of times that middle child ends up being the funny one because he wants the attention, bringing back familiar characters from the original show. But something didn't click. The series lasted just 6 episodes before getting cancelled. It wasn't the breakout moment he had hoped for, but it was still a big step back then. He was credited as Jonathan Weiss, his birth name. He worked alongside TV veterans like Robert Reed and Florence Henderson, picking up skills that would help him later. The show may have been short-lived, but the experience was invaluable. It gave him a glimpse into the world of television, a taste of what it was like to be part of a series. That early exposure led to something much bigger. In 199 he auditioned for Home Improvement and landed the role of Randy Taylor. The show became a massive hit, running for 8 seasons and turning him into one of the most recognizable young stars of the decade. His resemblance to Tim Allen helped him get cast, but it was his quick wit and natural delivery that made him a fan favorite. Randy wasn't just another sitcom kid, he questioned things and challenged his father's traditional beliefs. "Hey everyone, this is John Baker, my new boss." Thomas appeared in 177 episodes of the show, which ran from 1991 to 1999. Fans loved his character not only because he was funny but also because he had depth. "Oh, hello, I'm Vanessa." "Hey, Mike Baxter. You look familiar." He was one of the most memorable characters on the show because, even at the age of 10, he took his work seriously. He balanced school and filming, an impressive but exhausting performance, which ultimately caused him to quit acting at the height of his fame. His messy blonde hair and blue eyes made him one of the decade's biggest teen idols, but Jonathan Taylor Thomas was more than just an actor. He was a phenomenon, appearing on the covers of magazines like Tiger Beat and Bop month after month. In interviews, he talked about staying grounded and using fame for the greater good. He didn't just want attention, he wanted to send the right message. His career went far beyond Home Improvement. He starred in family-friendly movies like Man of the House, Tom and Huck, and I'll Be Home for Christmas. These roles made him even more popular, but they also came with a cost. By the late 90s he was growing tired of the constant spotlight. He hated being called JT. He didn't like when interviewers pried into his personal life. The pressure of being a teen idol started to feel overwhelming. Balancing Hollywood and school wasn't easy. It wasn't just about keeping up with classes. The long hours and stress started affecting his health. He suffered from intense migraines, sometimes filming entire episodes while dealing with severe headaches. In a 1994 interview he admitted, "I can't tell you how many shows I've done with full-blown migraine headaches." He kept going. He stayed professional, but it was getting harder. In 1998 he made the decision to leave Home Improvement. He was only 17, but he had been working non-stop for nearly a decade. He wanted something different. He wanted to live a normal life. Some cast members weren't happy about his departure and fans were shocked, but for Thomas it was the right move. Later he explained, "Had I stayed at the show and tried to do academically what I'm doing now, I would have put myself in, and aside from that, Burley Grave Taylor, Jonathan Thomas was just 12 years old when he was cast as the voice of young Simba in Disney's The Lion King. He has been playing Randy on Home Improvement for the past 6 seasons, and as of July 2nd, he will be appearing in the upcoming movie Wild America. When he played Randy Taylor on Home Improvement, he was already well known. But this role elevated his career to a new level. The film was a huge hit, earning almost $1 billion and 2 Academy Awards for Thomas. It was more than just a job, it was an opportunity to bring one of Disney's most cherished characters to life. Disney spent months looking for the right voice because they needed someone who could capture Simba's energy, curiosity, and playful nature. Thomas was the ideal choice because, despite the fact that dozens of child actors tried out, he had a natural confidence that made Simba feel genuine rather than like just another cartoon character. His voice also had the ideal balance of charisma and innocence. Since Thomas was working on Home Improvement, Disney had to accommodate his schedule for more than a year. Some of his lines were even recorded on the set of the show, where he frequently had to perform by himself while imagining how the other characters would react. To make it feel more natural, he occasionally acted out his lines, which helped him react in a way that felt genuine. His facial expressions and body language were also recorded. His trademark smirk even became one of Simba's most identifiable characteristics, allowing animators to incorporate aspects of his personality into the character. Like his character on Home Improvement, Thomas had a connection with Simba that strengthened the performance. Even though the film was animated, Thomas gave it an emotional depth that made it unforgettable. Simba was bold, witty, and independent, and his familiarity helped him sound natural in every scene. His voice made Simba's excitement, fear, and sadness feel real, especially when he finds Mufasa after the stampede. The Lion King was more than just a hit movie, it became a cultural phenomenon. The soundtrack sold millions of copies. Its story about identity and responsibility connected with audiences around the world. Years later it remains one of Disney's most beloved films, and Thomas's voice is a big reason why his performance shaped how people saw Simba, making the character feel relatable and real. After The Lion King, Thomas kept working in voice acting. In 1996 he played Pinocchio in The Adventures of Pinocchio, a live-action animated film that gave a new take on the classic story. His voice captured the wonder and determination of a wooden puppet who dreams of becoming a real boy. It showed that he wasn't just a child star, he had real talent for bringing characters to life. He also took on smaller roles in animation. He played Tyler Tucker in The Wild Thornberrys, a show about a family that traveled the world studying wildlife. He made a guest appearance on The Simpsons voicing a character named Luke Stetson. Even in these short roles his voice had a charm that made each character stand out. He later voiced Prince Raggies in the sci-fi adventure Through the Moyas Strip and played Tangy, a teddy bear searching for a home in the holiday special The Tangerine Bear. Each project let him explore different kinds of characters, showing how versatile he was as a voice actor. Jonathan Taylor Thomas was everywhere in the 1990s. He wasn't just the kid from Home Improvement, he was leading some of the biggest family films of the decade. He played characters full of energy, humor, and adventure, and no matter what kind of story he was in, he always made it feel fun. In 1995, he starred in Man of the House as Ben Archer, a kid who was having a hard time accepting his mom's new boyfriend Chevy Chase. At first, Ben did everything in his power to keep him out of their lives, coming up with pranks and tricks to keep him away, but when a dangerous situation forced them to stick together, everything changed. It wasn't just a comedy, it had action, family drama, and a story about learning to accept change. The film received mixed reviews, but Thomas stood out for his sharp, funny, and self-assured performance alongside Chevy Chase, who was known for his quick-witted humor. That same year, he played a completely different role in Tom and Huck, this time as Tom Sawyer, the legendary troublemaker from Mark Twain's classic story. He wasn't just causing mischief for fun. When he and Huck Finn stumbled into a murder mystery, things quickly became serious, and they were on the run, keeping secrets, and attempting to stay one step ahead of danger. It was an action-packed, suspenseful, and adventurous film, but it never lost the light-hearted tone of the original tale. Thomas was a perfect fit for the role of Tom because he had the right amount of charm and boldness to make it seem like he was the kind of kid who could talk his way out of anything. You know, I haven't had much time for that lately, so I went straight to school and studied hard for finals, and you know what grade you went. Anyhow, I just finished my freshman year, which I'm very happy about because I get to go back next year. In 1997, he changed things up once more. He played Marshall Stour, the youngest of three brothers who set out on a cross-country journey to film wildlife, a story about adventure and chasing big dreams rather than city streets or small-town neighborhoods. Because the film was set in forests, rivers, and mountains with actual animals, each scene felt more thrilling. Unlike his previous performances, Thomas's character in I'll Be Home for Christmas, 1998, a holiday comedy with a twist, was ambitious, determined, and ready to prove himself. He wasn't playing the typical wisecracking child this time, but he managed to make it work. As a self-centered college student, Thomas portrayed Jake Wilkinson. When his father gave him a classic Poor show as a Christmas present, Jake was eager to take full advantage of it. However, before he could return home, he found himself stranded in the desert in a Santa suit. With no money and no way out. The only way to get out of this situation was to change his mindset. The film was full of humorous, outrageous situations, but at its core, it was about understanding what matters most. Thomas made sure Jake wasn't simply another self-centered character by giving him just enough appeal to keep people cheering him on even when he made mistakes. Each of his films had something unique to offer, some with more humor and others with more action, but they all demonstrated why one of the decade's biggest rising performers, Jonathan Taylor Thomas, was able to make a character seem genuine, which kept viewers interested. Jonathan Taylor Thomas was the voice of Simba in The Lion King, a star on Home Improvement, and one of the most well-known teen actors of the 1990s. At the height of his fame, he quietly decided to leave everything behind without any scandals or dramatic exits. He had grown up in Hollywood, but by the time he turned 18, he wanted something different. In 2000, he enrolled at Harvard University to study philosophy and history, which was a big change from red carpets and TV sets, but he embraced it. Instead of memorizing scripts, he was debating ideas and reading books. He wasn't just looking for a break from acting, he wanted to redefine himself. 2 years later, he left Harvard to study abroad at the University of St Andrews in Scotland. This gave him a new perspective that went beyond the industry he had grown up in. When he returned to the US, he continued his education at Columbia University, eventually earning his degree in 2010. During all of this, he avoided the spotlight, while many former child stars kept their names in the headlines. Thomas discreetly established a life away from Hollywood. He never attempted to utilize his notoriety to highlight his academic career. Make a resurgence. He just moved on, but his departure wasn't without rumors. One of the most significant was that he chose to skip the 1999 Home Improvement series finale, even though the rest of the cast reunited Ed for the final episode. At the time, he was preoccupied with applying to colleges and felt that his future was more important. Tim Allen, who had portrayed his father on screen for many years, acknowledged that the choice perplexed him. Thomas Jonathan Taylor, thank you very much for being here, it's great to have you here. Ladies and gentlemen, please play Mr. James Brown for us. Okay, our next guest, Patricia Richardson, who played his on-screen mother, later stressed that there was no significant fallout and that she actually remained in contact with Thomas, supporting his decision to break away. Some people interpreted this as an indication of tension between them. Years later, when discussions of a reunion for Home Improvement started, Richardson disclosed that neither she nor Thomas had been contacted regarding a relaunch. This sparked conjecture, but there was never any public disagreement. Thomas had just moved on, but the pressure of being a child star had a significant negative impact on him both physically and emotionally. He had migraines while filming Home Improvement, and these weren't just mild headaches, they were severe, excruciating episodes that made it difficult for him to concentrate. He had to memorize lines, perform on set, and keep up with school while dealing with constant pain, and the long hours only made matters worse. He once talked about how exhausting it was to balance acting, school and a personal life. He mentioned in an interview how stressful it was to be a student, a performer, and a normal kid all at the same time. When a child star like Thomas is as well known as he was, the pressure is immense. He wasn't just acting, he was carrying the success of a popular TV show. By 1998, he had reached his limit and decided to leave because his health and education were more important than continuing to be in the spotlight, which is something that many young actors find difficult to do. At the height of his career, Thomas's desire of fame became overpowering. He was one of the biggest teen idols of the decade, and his face was everywhere. Fans demanded more of him, and paparazzi followed him everywhere. In a 1997 interview, he said that the constant attention made him nervous since he realized that fame came with responsibilities and that, despite his best efforts, he was unable to satisfy everyone. This understanding had a negative impact on him. Being transformed into something more than oneself is what it means to be a teen idol. Admirers project their own ideas. At first, it may seem thrilling when strangers feel like they know you, but eventually, it gets oppressive. Thomas never wanted to stay in Hollywood forever. In a 1996 interview, he called the industry neurotic and weird. He preferred spending time with friends outside of show business. He wanted to be himself, not a product of fame. On top of all that, rumors about his personal life followed him for years. Fans and tabloids obsessed over his private life, especially his sexuality. In 2000, he played a character struggling with identity in the Showtime movie Common Ground. It was just a role, but people used it as fuel for speculation. He never addressed the rumors, and his silence only made them grow. For someone who valued privacy, this kind of attention was exhausting. Every part of his life was picked apart. People made assumptions about him without knowing anything real. Instead of dealing with that forever, he chose a different path. He walked away, focused on education, and built a life outside of the public eye. One of his first major returns To acting came in the early 2000s with Smallville the show. Followed a young Clark Kent before he became Superman and was one of the biggest hits of its time in stark contrast to his roles from the 1990s. Thomas played Ian Randall in 2 episodes. He was a high school student with a dangerous secret, and his ability to clone himself made for an intense plot. Thomas was no longer the wisecracking kid from Home Improvement. Despite the minor role, it demonstrated that he was capable of handling more than sitcoms. He had a brief but noteworthy appearance in Veronica Mars in 2005, a few years later. The show had a devoted following and was renowned for its incisive writing and stories that were full of intrigue. Thomas played a high school student involved in a suspenseful investigation, keeping audiences guessing about his true intentions. It was another step away from his childhood image, proving he could take on more complex roles, but his biggest return to television happened when he reunited with Tim Allen on Last Man Standing. Between 2013 and 2016 he appeared in multiple episodes, bringing a wave of nostalgia. For Home Improvement fans, the chemistry between him and Allen was still their making. The reunion felt effortless, but Thomas wasn't just there to act, he was also stepping into a new role of filmmaking, and it's fun. You get to do, I would say, more than on the TV show. In films you really get to see things blow up and jump off things. Definitely, I mean that's part of the joy of it. Yeah, do you like being, cause you're 18 Idol, do you enjoy that? I know you take your acting seriously. But director, over the course of his time on the show he directed 3 episodes, showing he had more to offer than just his on-screen presence. His interest in directing wasn't sudden. Even during Home Improvement he had spent time watching directors at work while other young actors focused on memorizing lines. Thomas recently remarked in an interview that being on set was like free film school. He realized early on that acting wasn't the only thing he wanted to do, and his work on Last Man Standing showed that he was serious about it. Thomas was paying attention to camera angles, scene setups, and how a show came together. Directing a few episodes might not seem like a big deal, but for someone who had spent years away from Hollywood it was a major step. It gave him a chance to collaborate in a different way, shaping a story from behind the camera instead of in front of it. Even with these small returns to acting, Thomas has stayed out of the spotlight. In June 2021 he was spotted walking his dogs in Hollywood. It was one of the first times he had been photographed in years. Unlike many former child stars, he never tried to hold on to fame. He walked away because he wanted to no social media, no red carpets, just a life outside of Hollywood. That doesn't mean he lost interest in storytelling. Over the years he has talked about his love for writing and directing. He still follows theater and film, he just prefers to enjoy it without the pressure of being in front of the camera. Even though he left Hollywood behind, his impact never faded. His role in Home Improvement made him a household name. His voice in The Lion King became part of movie history for an entire generation. He was a defining face of the 90s, but his biggest statement wasn't in a role he played, it was in the choice he made. Walking away from fame is rare. It is even less common to do it on your own terms, which may be why he is more unforgettable than ever.